Imagine waking up in a town where every smile feels rehearsed, every memory bends at the edges, and the reflection in the mirror blinks before you do. My name is Micah, at least that's who they told me I was. But the truth? I'm not sure I've ever really existed. Echoes of Control is the story of a man trapped in a looping illusion, piecing together fractured identities, hunted by a system that rewrites his very thoughts. This isn't just about escaping a town. It's about surviving your own mind and remembering who you were before they erased you. Welcome to the Skillful Art of Manipulation podcast. If you haven't already, please consider following us on your favorite podcast platform. Today, we present to you Echoes of Control. Let's dive into this thrilling narrative together. Chapter 1. The Static Between My Thoughts. They say the mind can trick you. That memory is just a story you tell yourself, shaped by emotion, skewed by repetition, sculpted by belief. But if that's true, if our lives are just stories we repeat often enough to convince ourselves they're real, what happens when the story no longer fits? My name is Micah. I'm 32 years old, or so I've been told. And lately, I've begun to wonder if I exist at all. I'm not talking about existential philosophy or some abstract spiritual doubt. I mean it literally. I sit in my apartment most nights, staring at the same peeling wallpaper in the hallway, watching the same street lamp flicker outside my bedroom window, listening to the same television reruns I could recite in my sleep. And yet, somehow, everything feels wrong, slightly off, as if the world I'm living in has been tampered with. My apartment is on the third floor of a red brick building on Marlowe Street, right across from the fire station. Every night at 9 p.m., the same siren howls into the air, regardless of whether there's a fire or not. That sound, sharp, shrill, piercing, is the only thing that feels real anymore. It's my metronome, the one constant in a place that seems increasingly filled with inconsistencies. For instance, my bathroom mirror. Last week, I stood in front of it brushing my teeth, and for a moment, just a moment, I swear my reflection blinked a fraction of a second before I did. It was subtle. So subtle, I almost let it go. But I didn't. I stood there, toothpaste foaming in my mouth, and I watched myself. It happened again. A delay. My reflection is always just a beat too eager to copy me. I used to think I was just tired, overworked, maybe even depressed. But the more I pay attention, the more I notice things that don't add up. My cat, Fig, used to sleep at the foot of my bed, every night like clockwork. But 3 nights ago, I woke up and found her sitting on the nightstand, still as a statue, staring at me with dilated eyes, unblinking. She wouldn't move, even when I called her, just kept staring, like she didn't recognize me. That was the same night the wall clock in the cafe stopped working. I work part-time at Groundswell Cafe. It's one of those indie joints where every drink comes with a story and every muffin has an ironic name. I usually open, which means I'm in by 6:30 a.m. Danny works the afternoon shift, smart, sarcastic, always chewing on a pen cap and sketching designs in her notebook. She's been there for years, but lately she's different too. Mechanical, off script. It was Tuesday, 2:14 p.m. The cafe was buzzing with the usual crowd, freelancers, students, lonely hearts clinging to their laptops like lifeboats. Then suddenly, without warning, everything froze. Not metaphorically, literally. The second hand on the old brass clock behind the counter stopped mid-tick. A woman near the window stopped mid-sip, her coffee cup hovering inches from her lips. Danny, mid-laugh, mouth open, didn't finish her sentence. The air itself seemed to pause. And then just as suddenly, it resumed. Like someone pressed play. No one reacted. No confusion. No whispers. They all picked up right where they left off. Laughter, sips, chatter. Except me. I looked around in disbelief. Surely someone else saw that? But they moved like nothing happened. I turned to Danny. "Did you see that?" I asked. She frowned. "See what?" "The clock. It stopped. For at least, 20 seconds. She blinked, smiled too wide, too practiced. "You've been working too much, Micah. You good." That smile chilled me to the bone. There was something behind it. A hollowness, like she wasn't really there. I didn't press further. I just nodded, went to the back, and pulled out the journal I'd started keeping. I wasn't much of a writer before this, but something about putting pen to paper feels necessary now. Like if I don't write things down, I'll lose them. Like they'll be taken from me. And that's the thing, some memories do feel taken. A week ago, I had a vivid memory of my old high school gym burning down. I could smell the smoke, hear the sirens. I remember standing in the parking lot, watching it crumble. But when I went to check the news archives, nothing. Not a single mention. The gym's still standing, still in use. I even drove by it just to be sure. But I know what I saw, what I remember. My hands still trembled the same way they did that night. My lungs still tightened from the phantom smoke. So what's the truth? Is it possible to implant a memory so deeply that even your body believes it? Or worse, can real memories be erased? That thought keeps me up most nights, along with the whispers. I hear them around 3 a.m. Always 3 a.m. Faint, like a radio tune between stations. They come from the vent above my bed, drifting down like mist. Micah, you're close. Keep forgetting, keep forgetting. Sometimes it's my voice whispering. Other times, it's my mother's. She's been dead for 4 years. I tried recording the sound once. Left my phone on the nightstand, microphone on. In the morning, the file was corrupted. Every time, just static. But the most disturbing part? The whispering stops if I look directly at the vent. Like it knows. I've started noticing people too. Not just Danny, but others. Neighbors, strangers, regulars. There's a man I've now seen 4 times in the past week. Same trench coat, same scar across his lip, same limp. He shows up on different streets, different corners, always watching me. The last time I saw him, I confronted him. "Hey," I shouted. "You lost or something?" He looked at me, paused, and smiled. Not a warm smile. Not even a mocking one. It was knowing. Like he was in on something I wasn't. Like he could see through me. Then he turned and walked away. I tried to follow. But by the time I turned the corner, he was gone. I've stopped trusting the people around me. Their movements are too precise. Their answers too rehearsed. It's like the entire town is stuck in some kind of loop. Like a television episode replaying with minor edits. And maybe the worst part is, I'm starting to think I'm the only one who notices. I woke up this morning with a note in my own handwriting tucked into my back pocket. I don't remember writing it. The paper smelled like my cologne, like it had been there for hours. 3 words, scrawled in trembling ink. They're watching thoughts. Not actions. Not conversations. Thoughts. I don't know what that means yet, but it terrifies me more than anything else. Because if that's true, then I have no sanctuary, no safe place, no hidden corner of my mind left untouched. And worse, I don't think this started recently. I think it's always been this way. I just didn't notice the static before. But now I hear it everywhere. Chapter 2, The Puppeteer's Smile. There's a certain type of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. It's not unkind. It's not even threatening. It's knowing. That's what I saw on the scarred man's face. I couldn't stop thinking about it. His trench coat had been frayed at the hem, like it had dragged behind him through every sidewalk and secret in this godforsaken town. His eyes were a dull gray, not lifeless, but hollow, like something had been scooped out of them. I kept picturing that scar, a crescent moon sliced diagonally across his upper lip, like a deliberate punctuation mark. It wasn't an accident. That scar said something. I've been broken open, it whispered. And I survived the inside. I didn't sleep that night. I tried. God, I tried. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that smile. I saw the town freeze again, like it had in the cafe. I saw Fig perched at the foot of my bed, her pupils 2 thin daggers, staring into some corner of the ceiling I couldn't see. I felt the clock stall in my chest, the pause between heartbeats that should never exist. At 3:12 a.m., I got out of bed, made a cup of instant coffee, and sat by the window. Townsville was bathed in a pale orange glow from the street lamps, that manufactured kind of peace that never quite settles in your bones. You know what I mean? The kind of silence that hums too loud. It was the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're the only real person left awake. That's when I saw him again. The man, standing directly beneath the flickering street lamp across the street, staring up at my window. Not moving, not blinking, just there. I stood frozen, the mug shaking in my hand. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I could barely breathe. He raised one hand, slowly, deliberately, and pointed to the side of his head, then tapped it twice, and vanished into the shadows. I didn't sleep at all after that. The next morning, I walked through Townsville with a notebook in hand and a plan in mind. I was going to find him, or at least find someone who remembered him. I needed proof, something tangible, something outside of myself. Because if I was really losing it, then fine, let me be crazy. But if I wasn't, then someone needed to know. I started at the cafe. Danny wasn't working yet, so I asked the new barista, Jonah, soft-spoken, overly polite, the kind of guy who always asks if you want oat milk even when you just ordered a black coffee. "Hey," I said casually, leaning against the counter, "you ever see a guy hanging around outside the shop? About my height, trench coat, kind of a scar right here." I gestured along my upper lip. Jonah blinked slowly. "Scar. Yeah. Thin, kind of curved. Gray eyes. Wears the same coat every day." He tilted his head slightly, too thoughtfully. "Can't say I have." "You sure he wasn't just a customer?" "No, not a customer. He's been following me." There was a pause. His lips twitched, almost imperceptibly. And then he smiled. Not a friendly smile. The same kind of smile he gave me. "No one follows anyone in Townsville," Jonah said calmly, almost rehearsed. "It's not that kind of place." He turned back to the espresso machine and didn't say another word. I wandered the streets after that. Just walked. Not aimlessly, purposefully. Tracing my own footsteps from the last week. I took the long route past Kerwin's porch again. The man pretending to be him wasn't there this time. The rocking chair sat empty, swaying slightly as if someone had just gotten up. I stopped by the park, listened to the same birds chirping the same melody on loop, watched children run across the same path in the same order. The little girl in the yellow sundress fell the same way she had 2 days ago. Same cry, same mother lifting her with the same, "It's okay, baby." I wanted to vomit. They were repeating, not in a cute, déjà vu way. No, this was scripted, timed, placed, rehearsed. It was like I was walking through a simulation that had run out of budget for variety. And that's when I saw him again, the scarred man. This time, across the street, near the old cinema that hasn't played a film since 2008. He stepped into view like he'd been waiting for his cue. I didn't hesitate. I ran across the road, dodging a car that didn't honk, didn't even slow down. "Hey," I shouted. He turned, but didn't move. "Who are you?" Still nothing. But there was something in his eyes this time. Something that flickered. I stepped closer, fists clenched. "You've been following me. Watching me." "Why?" "You're awake," he said. His voice was gravel dragged across broken glass. "What?" "You're one of the few. That makes you dangerous." "What the hell are you talking about?" He glanced around, then pulled me into the alley behind the cinema. The smell of old popcorn and mildew clung to the walls. "I can't talk long," he said. "They monitor thought clusters. Prolonged interaction triggers alerts." Thought clusters. They call it harmonic echo synchronization. Your mind is out of sync with the town's control field. You see things you're not supposed to. I stared at him, blinking. "You're insane." "No," he said. "You're breaking free. They'll try to reset you soon. You have to be ready." I took a step back. "Reset." He reached into his coat and pulled out a photograph. Me, standing in front of Groundswell Cafe. Only, I was smiling. Blank. Robotic. Danny was next to me. The scarred man was circled in red in the background. "You're not supposed to remember this version," he said. "But you will." I looked down again. In the photo, my eyes were dead. "What do they want?" I asked. "Control," he whispered. "Not of what you do, but of who you are." And then he ran. Just took off down the alley like someone had pulled a string and yanked him away. I chased him. But when I turned the corner, he was gone. No trace. No footprints. Just the distant hum of the town looping back into place. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror again. My hands trembled as I brushed my teeth. I tried not to blink, tried to catch the reflection lagging again. And it did. This time, my reflection smiled. But I didn't. I dropped the toothbrush, stumbled back, heart thundering. I swore it winked at me. That crooked little wink, like it knew what was coming. And scrawled into the fog on the mirror, though I hadn't even taken a shower, were the words, "You were never Micah." Chapter 3. The Memory That Wasn't Mine. There's a specific kind of fear that doesn't spike your adrenaline. It doesn't make you scream or run or cry out for help. It settles, quietly, deep in your chest, like fog that rolls in under your skin and never rolls back out. That's the kind of fear I woke up with the morning after the mirror spoke to me. You were never Micah. The words had vanished by dawn. The mirror was spotless, as if someone had come in during the night and wiped clean. I ran my fingers over the glass. Smooth, cold, ordinary. But the damage had been done. I didn't recognize the face staring back. Same dark hair, though the strands were longer than I remembered. Eyes a little bloodshot. Skin a little paler than usual. But it wasn't just physical. It was deeper. There was something in the shape of my stare. A silence in it, like someone had dimmed the lights inside me. I whispered my name under my breath. Micah. No spark. No familiarity. Just syllables, weightless and unfamiliar. I said it again, louder this time. Micah. Still nothing. And that's when the memories started bleeding. Not mine. At first, they came in flashes. Fragments. Out-of-focus photographs. An abandoned train station with rusted signs. A woman with green eyes humming a lullaby in a language I couldn't identify. The scent of rain on asphalt, paired with the sensation of running barefoot through alleyways that I knew didn't exist in Townsville. Then came the stronger ones. I was 8, sitting on the steps of a cracked marble building, staring at a wooden puppet show. The puppets danced and the crowd clapped, and someone whispered into my ear, "They won't let you grow up if you remember this." But I don't remember that happening. Not here. Not anywhere I know. So how is it so vivid? I skipped work that day. Called in sick. Jonah didn't ask questions. He just said, "Feel better," and hung up. No concern, no real emotion in his voice. Like the script only gave him 1 page. I needed answers. Not half glimpses. Not whispers. Answers. So I went digging. There's an abandoned building on the east side of Townsville, tucked behind a forgotten lot that used to be a drive-in theater. I remember it from childhood, or thought I did. But when I tried to recall what the building had once been, the memory dissolved before I could catch it. A library? A rec center? A shelter? I couldn't say for sure. All I knew was that I'd been there before, or someone in me had. The front door was chained, but one of the windows on the side had rotted away. I slipped through, careful not to cut myself on the jagged glass. Inside, it smelled like mildew and rust. The floors were covered in dust, but not undisturbed. There were footprints, recent ones, and cigarette butts crushed under heavy boots. The scarred man had been here. I followed the trail down a narrow hallway, past collapsed shelves and crumbling paint. Eventually, I found a door half open, hanging by one hinge. Inside was a room with concrete walls, a single desk, and an overturned filing cabinet. Papers were strewn across the floor like dead leaves. I knelt down, flipping through them. Most were blank, but one wasn't. It was a photo, black and white. Me again, or someone who looked like me, standing beside 2 strangers. A man in a lab coat and a woman with an eye patch. All 3 of us were smiling, but it was a wrong kind of smile. Crooked, too wide. Our eyes weren't looking at the camera, they were looking just past it. Behind the photo was a note, handwritten in jagged scrawl. Iteration 54, Micah, initial synchronization incomplete. Personality drift detected. I sat on the floor, hard in my throat. Iteration? Synchronization? Personality drift? What was I? I tried to stand, but dizziness hit me like a wave. I clutched the edge of the desk and lowered myself back down. My vision pulsed. My skin felt like it didn't quite fit right. Suddenly, I remembered screaming. Not just in the photo room, but in a white chamber strapped to a chair. Tubes in my arms. Lights blinding me. Voices arguing behind glass. His recall rate is spiking. Too soon. Pull him out. No. Let it play. A machine beeped. A helmet descended. And then nothing. Just black. And now here I was again, sitting in the ruins of something that had clearly once been a facility, and realizing the walls weren't just metaphorically crumbling. They were literal, and they had names on them. I turned slowly. On the back wall, scratched into the concrete, were dozens of names. Aaron, Mariah, Felix, John, Lena, Micah, 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 written over and over. The same name, different handwriting, as if dozens of people had tried to remind themselves of who they were, or were supposed to be. I left the building in a daze. The sun had already started setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot. But those shadows didn't move naturally. They stayed in place, like the sun itself was being projected. That thought chilled me more than anything else. Was even the sky a lie? I didn't go home. Not yet. Instead, I walked the town. I traced familiar streets, observed faces, listened to conversations that sounded increasingly hollow. A couple on a park bench repeated the same argument I'd overheard 2 days ago. Word for word. A man at the grocery store placed the same 5 items in the same order on the conveyor belt, and the cashier greeted him with the exact same inflection as before. I walked to the bus station even though I didn't know where I was going. I just needed distance. That's when I saw her. The woman with green eyes from my fragmented memory. She stood at the vending machine, back to me, humming softly. The same lullaby. I approached cautiously. My voice caught in my throat. "Excuse me, do I know you?" She turned slowly. Her face was kind, familiar in a way that was almost painful. She studied me. "You do. But not like this." "What does that mean?" She looked around. "We don't have long." "Please," I begged. "I don't know who I am anymore." "You were never meant to." She handed me something. A cassette tape. Unlabeled. Plain. She slid it into my palm and closed my fingers around it. "This is all that's left of you. Hide it. Listen only when you're truly alone. And only once." "Why are you helping me?" "Because I loved you. Before they erased me." And just like that, she was gone. Not vanished, just gone. Walked away and dissolved into the noise of the town. And no one else even turned their head. Back home, I locked every door, turned off every light, and sat in silence with the cassette in my hand. My fingers trembled as I dusted off an old tape player from a box in the closet. I inserted the tape. Press play. Static. Then, my own voice. Crisp. Calm. Me. "If you're hearing this, it means you've broken through enough to remember." "Good. That means there's still time." I gripped the arms of my chair. "You were part of a trial. Townsville isn't a town. It's a mental architecture. A manufactured community running on loop to test behavioral rewrites. You are Subject 54. Designated Micah during Phase 3. But you were never Micah. That identity was constructed for assimilation." I felt the walls tilt around me. They can't fully control you if you remember who you were. That's the only leverage you have. The real you is buried beneath scripts, patterns, synthetic emotion. But pieces remain. You'll find them in the places where reality glitches. The voice paused. My voice. My real voice. "And one more thing, don't trust your reflection." Click. The tape ended. I sat in darkness, alone, breathing so hard my chest hurt. I stared at the blank screen of the player, willing it to say something more. Anything. Something to bring me back. But all I heard was the faint sound of something creaking. I turned. The bathroom door was slowly swinging open. And from inside, I heard my voice say, "Micah, you're late for your next synchronization." Chapter 4. beneath the town that breathes. There is a kind of silence that hums louder than any sound. A pressure that builds in your ears like you're standing too close to something massive, something living, something watching. That's what I felt the moment the tape ended and my voice, my other voice, spoke from inside the bathroom. Micah, you're late for your next synchronization. I didn't move at first. Couldn't. I sat frozen in my chair, staring into the yawning dark of that half-open door. My pulse throbbed in my neck like a warning. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I didn't look, if I sat perfectly still, whatever was in that room wouldn't notice me, would leave. But I knew better. This town didn't operate on logic or hope or physics. It operated on control, and it wanted mine back. I stood slowly, each breath a calculated risk. The tape player let out one final click as if punctuating my decision, like a narrator closing a chapter. I crossed the room on bare feet, the floorboards creaking beneath me in ways they never had before. Or maybe they always had, and I just never listened. The bathroom was dark. I flicked on the light. Empty. No reflection spoke back. No one waited in the mirror. Just me. But that was somehow worse. Because it meant something had spoken in my voice, and it didn't need a face to do it. I didn't sleep. Again. Instead, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, watching the faint blinking of the smoke detector cast red shadows on the walls. I thought about the tape, the woman at the bus station, the scarred man, the scars inside me. There was no denying it anymore. My memories weren't mine. My life wasn't mine. But the fear had mutated into something else. Not panic, not confusion, rebellion. If this entire town was a lie, a looping simulation, a test environment, whatever, they had failed to fully wipe me. And that meant there was a way out, a crack in the foundation. I just had to find it. So I decided to go where the tape had hinted, to the infrastructure, the architecture, as it called it. Townsville wasn't just built to look quaint. It was engineered to feel safe, familiar, controlled. But something had to power that illusion. Someone had to maintain it. And systems leave trails. I packed a bag with the essentials: flashlight, notebook, gloves, a water bottle, and a small hammer I found buried in the back of a kitchen drawer. I had no plan, just a direction. Down. The first place that made sense was the maintenance hatch behind the Townsville library. I only remembered it because, as a kid, I used to sneak cigarettes with a friend named Eli behind the dumpster there. Only the more I thought about it, the less sure I was that Eli had ever really existed. His face blurred when I tried to picture it. His voice gone, like someone had erased him from the reel, but left the background music playing. Still, the hatch was there, rusted but unlocked, and just out of view from the security cameras that never blinked, but always watched. I pried it open. A blast of cold air rushed out from the dark beneath the ground. Damp. Metallic. I shivered, but not from the temperature, from the wrongness of it. This wasn't just a storm drain or some forgotten utility passage. It breathed. I climbed down the ladder, one shaky rung at a time, every step echoing against the concrete walls like the start of something permanent. At the bottom was a corridor, unlit, narrow. Pipes snaked along the ceiling like intestines, humming faintly. The walls were lined with mesh grating and tangled wires, thousands of them, feeding into glass panels that pulsed with dim blue light. This wasn't a sewer. This was a nerve center. I stepped deeper. The further I walked, the more I saw. Rooms built into the sides of the tunnel, filled with machinery I couldn't begin to identify. Transparent cylinders, filled with a glowing gel that seemed to pulse. Like heartbeats. I stopped in front of one. Inside was a mannequin, or something that looked like one. Humanoid, bald, with no eyes. Just smooth skin. But its chest rose and felt like it was breathing. As I watched, its head twitched toward me. I stumbled back, heart leaping to my throat. Then it was still again. Mannequin. Machine. Person. I didn't know anymore. In the next room, I found servers. Towers of them, whirring softly. Screens showed endless lines of data, graphs, and, this was the worst part, live video feeds of Townsville. Every street, every shop, every home, every person, including me sitting on my couch, right now. Or, rather, someone wearing me. I watched, horrified, as my doppelganger flipped through a book, sipped coffee, scratched fig behind the ears. "That's not me," I whispered. But the system didn't care. It had a copy, a stand-in. And if I'd gone missing, it would have kept playing that loop for everyone else to see. Maybe it already had. I moved quickly now. Every room was worse than the last. One was filled with shelves of cassette tapes labeled with first names, some repeated hundreds of times. Mariah 17, John 88, Micah 54. Each one cataloged like a specimen jar. There were maps of the town, but not in the usual sense. These were layered. Levels upon levels of subgrids, housing layouts, memory clusters, emotional trigger zones, synchronization nodes. I found my address. It was marked in red. Beneath it, handwritten. Subject 54, detachment accelerating. Memory reformation incomplete. Recommend reset. Reset. They'd tried already, probably more than once. But it hadn't stuck. They were losing me. And I was starting to win. I copied down everything I could. Took photos with my phone, though part of me knew it would fail. The moment I left this place, that data would be wiped or scrambled. Just like the whisper recordings. Just like the corrupted memories. But I had to try. And then I found the final room. The core. A massive cylindrical chamber lit by rings of orange light, humming like an engine buried beneath reality. In the center was a pedestal. A single panel, displaying 5 names. Each name flickered randomly. Micah, 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 Micah. All 5 names were mine. Beneath them, a blinking prompt. Begin synchronization. My fingers hovered over the screen. If I pressed it, would I forget again? Would they reinsert me, rewrite me, erase the part of me that had clawed its way out? Or was there a chance I could use it to disrupt the system? My hand trembled. I backed away instead. I wasn't ready. Not yet. I surfaced from the hatch 2 hours later. The sun had risen. Townsville looked the same. Calm, charming, polished, fake. I walked down the street like a ghost in my own skin. No one looked at me. No one acknowledged me. Just perfectly timed smiles, nods, routines. And then I saw something that stopped me cold. A man walking toward me. Same build, same gait, same trench coat, same scar. But this time, he didn't look at me. He passed me like I didn't exist. Like his job was done. Or like I had become invisible even to him. That night, I opened my journal. But the pages were blank. Completely white. Every note I had taken over the last week, gone. As if I'd never written them. And my handwriting, it was different now. Rounder. Neater. Like someone had recalibrated my motor functions while I slept. But the pain behind my eyes remained. The unease in my gut hadn't vanished. Whatever had happened down there in the tunnels, it hadn't erased me. Not fully. And I had one weapon they hadn't accounted for. I still remembered. For now. Chapter 5. When the people start to glitch. It started with the mailman. Every morning at exactly 9:02, he walks up Marlowe Street, his steps crisp and efficient. The same blue uniform pressed into the same perfect creases. Every movement is robotic, efficient, choreographed. He pauses at every third mailbox, never the second, never the fourth, and places one envelope precisely inside. Always one, always plain, always white. I used to think it was charming, his consistency, part of the rhythm of the town, a small, harmless tradition. But today, I watched from my window at 8:58 a.m., waiting. I needed to see it happen again. I needed to catch the loop with my own eyes. At 9:02 exactly, he appeared. But he didn't walk. He jerked forward, like a video buffering. A skipped frame. 1 second he wasn't there, and the next, he was halfway up the block. And then he did it again, and again. A strange, flickering forward stutter, like the space between seconds was glitching. I ran to the front door and stepped out just in time to see him reach my mailbox. He paused mid-motion, hand outstretched. Then he froze, like a machine that hadn't received the next command. He just stood there, completely still, for maybe 5 full seconds. And then, with no warning, he resumed. Slipped the envelope in. Moved to the next house. I called out to him. "Hey, you okay?" He didn't look back. Didn't flinch. Just kept walking, spine unnaturally straight, head too still. I chased after him, my heartbeat a thunderclap in my chest. "Can you hear me?" He stopped. Then slowly, too slowly, turned around. His eyes were blank, clouded, like there was a fog trapped behind his pupils. His jaw twitched once, then again. His mouth opened just slightly, like he was going to speak. Then he said something that wasn't speech. Not English. Not a language. Just sound. A low, mechanical tone that vibrated in my teeth, like a dial-up modem scream crossed with a whisper from inside a metal tomb. I stumbled backward. And then he blinked, smiled, and said in a chipper tone, "Have a Townsville kind of day," and walked away. I didn't go back inside. I couldn't. Instead, I walked. Fast, erratic, wild-eyed. I passed familiar faces on the street, but they didn't register as people anymore. Just characters. Placeholders. Like everyone around me had been reduced to animations, running the same subroutine on a loop, stuck inside a world that was losing resolution. I passed the florist. She arranged the same bouquet she did every day, sunflowers, lilies, 1 rose. I passed the barber. He laughed the same laugh at a joke no one had told. And then I saw it. Across the street, 3 women sitting on a bench. Not talking, not moving, just staring ahead. And then, perfectly synchronized, they all tilted their heads to the left. Same angle, same breath, same blink. I stopped cold. They didn't look at me, but one of them smiled. Her lips cracked open like they'd been dry for days. I could hear the skin split from where I stood. Then, in perfect unison, they said, "Micah." That was it. Just my name. Like a spell. Like a warning. I ran. I ended up at the old train yard on the outskirts of town, half abandoned. Rusted metal rising like gravestones under the gray sky. No one ever came here anymore. The tracks had been dead for decades. Or, so I'd always been told. I crouched behind a freight container, trying to catch my breath. And that's when I heard the sound. Footsteps. Real ones. Inconsistent. Human. Not the too perfect cadence of the townspeople. I held my breath and peered around the corner. And there she was. Not a hallucination. Not a system echo. A person. Messy brown hair. Backpack slung over one shoulder. Jeans with mud on the cuffs. Scuffed boots. And eyes, real eyes. Sharp. Awake. I recognized her. But not from any memory. It was in my gut. My skin. The way my spine straightened when I saw her. She turned, spotted me, and her eyes went wide. "Micah." I didn't answer. Couldn't. She rushed forward, grabbed my face in her hands like she was making sure I was real. "I thought they got to you," she whispered. "You disappeared for weeks." I tried to get into the core, but the nodes were scrambled. The map rerouted itself every time I got close. "What are you talking about?" I breathed. "Who are you?" She blinked. "You really don't remember?" "No. I mean, I've been remembering things, but they're fragments, like pieces from someone else's life." She let go of me slowly, visibly shaken. "They've started patching deeper. You're probably running on layer 6 by now. Personality cores still drifting though. That's good. That's why you haven't been fully absorbed." I don't understand half the word you're saying." She looked around, scanned the rooftops, then leaned in close. "My name is Rowan. We were part of the same breach team. 3 of us. You, me, and Theo. We came in 6 months ago to expose the Townsville protocol. But you got caught in a thought loop. They extracted Theo. I stayed to find you." I blinked. "You're telling me this is real? Everything I've seen. This town, the glitches, the tunnels, the mannequins." "Real enough," she said grimly. "It's not a simulation. It's worse. It's a reconstruction." "Of what?" She hesitated. "Of us. Of our lives. Our thoughts. They don't just copy what we do. They rebuild who we were and then overwrite it. Again and again. until what's left is a controllable, programmable version of a person. I shook my head. No, I've been living here my whole life. No, you haven't, she interrupted. You've been looped here. They rebuilt your timeline, filled it with pre-scripted memories. Every person you've ever met, a behavioral module. Every cat, every job, every childhood friend, constructed, injected, retold. I felt my knees weaken. I sat down in the dust and grit of the train yard, head spinning. They reset you over 50 times, Micah, but you're still fighting. That means part of the real you is still in there. They haven't won yet. I looked up at her, voice breaking. I don't know who I am. Rowan's face softened. She crouched beside me. I do, and I'll help you remember. But we have to move. The people are starting to glitch. That means the control system is destabilizing. They'll lock the town down, run a sweep. They'll wipe everything. I whispered, how do we stop them? Her eyes hardened. We burn the route. She led me back through an access hatch near the old train tower, different from the one I'd found behind the library. This one was older, deeper, and colder. The air felt wet, electrically charged. As we descended, she explained, there's a neural core deep beneath the center of Townsville. They call it the root. It feeds all the behavioral models, syncs the thought clusters, autocorrects deviant patterns. Every person here is being rewritten in real time. But if we kill the root, the whole system collapses. Why not just escape? I asked. Rowan paused on the ladder, looked down at me. You can't escape a place that's inside your own mind. We reached the chamber 2 hours later. The root was alive. That's the only word for it. A massive tree of light and wires, pulsing in a way that felt biological. Tendrils of data streamed across its surface, weaving through the dark like veins. At the center was a heart, glowing, spinning slowly, thrumming with thought. Around it stood 20 mannequins, no eyes, no faces. Just open mouths and twitching fingers, connected to the root with thick black cords. One of them turned to us, then another, and in unison they whispered, Micah, come home. My ears rang. My vision blurred. Rowan handed me a device, small, square, humming with energy. You press this to the heart, she said. It'll disrupt the root's synchronization field. It'll hurt, but it will wake you up. The real you. I looked at the device, then at her. What if I lose everything? You already did, she said. This is your chance to take something back. I stepped forward. The mannequins didn't move. They just watched, their mouths opened wider. And from the core, a voice called out. My voice. I'm happy here. Let me stay. Rowan shouted, that's not you. That's the system pretending to be you. My hand trembled as I raised the device. Then I pressed it to the heart. And the world, my world, screamed. Chapter 6. The World Between Waking. There was no explosion, no thunderclap, no blinding light, no satisfying cinematic crash of glass and sparks. Only silence, dense, vibrating, suffocating. The moment I pressed the device to the heart of the root, everything just stopped. Not outside me, but inside. Like a switch had been flipped in my brain, and every system, every motor function, every memory, every illusion went dark. One moment I was standing in that underground chamber, face to face with the mechanical thing pretending to be me. The next, I was floating. Not metaphorically. Actually literally floating. In a space with no edges, no colors, no floor, no sky. I couldn't feel my body. Couldn't move my limbs. I wasn't sure I had limbs anymore. I wasn't even sure I had a name anymore. This place, whatever it was, felt like a cross between sleep and anesthesia. I was conscious, but only barely. Thoughts came slow, tangled like seaweed in molasses. My senses were scrambled, disconnected from the laws of time and cause and effect. And then, I heard the voices, dozens at first, then hundreds, all whispering, all inside my head. Protocol breached, subject drifting, recalibration pending. He wasn't supposed to reach the root. Micah is not stable. Initiating memory quarantine. The voices overlapped like layered recordings, distorted by distance and static. Some sounded robotic, others human, familiar. Mine. I'm not ready. Don't wake me up yet. Please, not yet. I screamed. Or tried to. But I had no mouth to scream with. Just thoughts, ricocheting like bullets inside a tin can. Was I dead? Was this what death felt like? Eternity inside a corrupted file? Or was this just the next layer? Time, if you could even call it that, passed. It could have been hours, days, seconds. There was no way to know. Then, like a slow camera zoom, the fog around me shifted. Thick strands of light began to form in the distance. Not beams, threads. Hundreds of them, dangling in the void like roots from an invisible ceiling. Each one pulsed faintly, as if alive. As I drifted closer, I realized they weren't just lights. They were memories. Mine, or what I thought were mine. Each thread, when touched, burst into images, scenes from a life I'd lived 100 times. 1,000. But the problem was they didn't match. In one thread, I was a child with a pet snake named Jerry, raised in a desert town with no greenery. In another, I was an only child in a beach house, with a twin sister named Lex who died in a boating accident. In another, I was adopted by 2 men who ran a bakery, and I spent my teen years covered in flour and sugar, dreaming of escape. None of these lives were real, and yet every one of them felt true. I wept. How could they all feel so visceral, so specific? Every laugh, every heartbreak, every childhood wound and teenage regret. They were stitched into my soul like scars. I remembered the smell of pine needles in a Christmas that never happened. The shattering sound of my first breakup in a life that couldn't have existed. These weren't dreams. They were implants. I reached out to one thread that glowed brighter than the others, brighter than all of them, almost burning. The moment I touched it, I was yanked into a full, immersive vision. I stood in a hospital room, sterile, cold, bleached white and humming with fluorescent light. A man sat beside a bed, myself, but older, paler, thinner. His hands trembled in his lap. I walked around to see who lay in the bed. It was me, but comatose, tubes down my throat, eyes closed, a bandage across my forehead. Machines beeped. The older me whispered to the doctor nearby. How long has he been under? The doctor sighed. 17 months since the incident. He's in phase 7 now. Thought erosion is beginning to stabilize, but there's still no emergence. The last dream cycle broke containment, but he re-looked. The older me looked broken. I thought this would wake him up. The doctor looked at the machines, voice distant. It might, or he might never return. At this point, it's not just about waking up. It's about rebuilding who he was. I staggered back. This was real. This was what was really happening. Townsville wasn't just a trap. It was a coma dream, a designed cognitive environment to keep me stable, to prevent mental collapse after whatever happened to me. The memory of the route, the mannequin voices, the woman at the bus station, Rowan, the glitches, the loops, the cafe. It was all built to occupy a brain that couldn't wake up. Except now it was collapsing, because I was remembering. The vision shattered like glass. I fell back into the void. Only now I wasn't alone. Rowan was there, or a version of her. She stood across from me, barefoot on the invisible floor, her expression half smile, half tears. This is the in-between, she said gently. The world between waking. Most people never get here. Am I dying? I asked. No, she said. You're choosing. I stared at her. You're not real, are you? She shook her head. I'm your mind's way of processing what it doesn't understand. But that doesn't make me untrue. What happens if I stay here? You go back. Another loop. Another identity. Another patch. They'll keep you comfortable. Keep you safe. And if I leave? She looked up. Above us, cracks began forming in the sky, or what passed for sky here. Cracks filled with firelight and static. If you leave, you wake up. But you'll wake up in a broken world. One you can't control. One that doesn't bend around your fears. And you'll have to live with the fragments. the damage, the memories of every life they gave you. She stepped closer. But you'll be free. I stood still, my body trembling, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of everything. I wasn't Micah. I wasn't any of the names they'd given me. I was a man who had fallen into darkness, whose brain had fractured under pressure, and whose mind had been rebuilt from the ruins by well-meaning strangers. But now I had a choice, to surrender or to climb. Rowan extended her hand, and I took it. The void trembled. The threads shattered. The voices screamed. I woke up gasping. Not in my bed. Not in the cafe. Not in Townsville. But in a hospital. For real. The lights were dim. The air smelled like antiseptic and wires. My body was weak. Muscles atrophied. But I was alive. A nurse looked up and dropped her clipboard. "Doctor," she shouted. "He's awake." People flooded in. Faces I didn't know. Or didn't remember. A doctor asked me questions I couldn't fully answer. What year is it? Who is the president? What's your name? I opened my mouth, paused, then whispered, I don't know. But what I did know was this. I wasn't theirs anymore. I had climbed out. I had woken up. And I would never forget what they tried to make me forget, even if I never knew who I truly was. At least now I knew who I wasn't.
Chapter 7. The Last Reset. They say waking up from a coma feels like being born again. But that's not true. Being born is simple. You come into a world that's foreign, and you learn it for the first time. There are no expectations. No guilt. No memory of what came before. Waking up from Townsville, was not birth. It was a burial. I emerged into the world like a ghost crawling out of someone else's grave, dragging pieces of every life I'd lived behind me like a chain of fractured mirrors. And worse, I didn't even know if the world I had woken into was real. Because everything felt wrong. The colors were too sharp. The faces too fast. People blinked too much. The world was asynchronous. Out of rhythm, like the tempo of my own heartbeat was still trying to catch up to this new reality. And everyone around me kept saying the same thing. You've been through something traumatic, Mr. Hale. Hale. That was my name. Not Micah. According to the charts at the foot of my hospital bed, my full name was Simon Hale. Age 34. Systems engineer. Suffered severe brain trauma in what they called a classified industrial accident. No next of kin. No clear personal history. No social media. No apartment to return to. Simon Hale was a shell. A placeholder. A man with no roots. They told me I'd been unconscious for 17 months. That I'd undergone a highly experimental form of neural stabilization therapy, technology that was still in trial phases, but remarkably effective. The nurse even smiled when she said it, like I should be grateful. But I wasn't grateful. I was angry, because I remembered everything. Every loop, every false friend, every manipulation, every voice they tried to bury me with. And worst of all, I remembered them. For the first 2 weeks, they kept me in the recovery wing. White walls, polished floors, doctors in scrubs who smiled too wide and wrote notes too quickly. I couldn't tell if they were part of the old system or just another illusion built to ease me into something worse. They showed me photos they claimed were from my real life, me standing next to nameless colleagues in front of a server farm, me holding a plaque with my name engraved on it. Department of Behavioral Neural Systems, Simon Hale, lead architect. That was the part that made my hands go cold. Architect. I'd helped design Townsville, or something like it, and that meant everything I'd lived through wasn't just a cage. It was a cage I may have helped build. I spent hours staring at my hands, trying to remember which version of me was the original. Micah. Simon. One of the dozens of shadows that existed between those two names? I wasn't sure anymore. My therapist, Dr. Lena Cross, was kind, gentle, patient, but her eyes were too still, too rehearsed. When I asked about the root, she tilted her head, blinked slowly, and said, "Sometimes the mind creates metaphors to make sense of trauma. That's very common in coma recovery patients." But I saw something flicker in her expression. Recognition. She knew. They all did. And if Townsville was a therapy system designed to keep broken minds contained, what did that make the people operating it? Jailers? Doctors? Gods? I stopped taking the pills they gave me after the second week. Hid them under my tongue, spat them into the toilet when no one was looking. I didn't trust anything they put in my body. Not anymore. Not after they'd rewritten me 54 times. And when the headaches started, I welcomed them. Pain meant I was still here. Pain meant the loop hadn't won. It was on the 23rd day of my recovery that I saw her. In the hallway. Rowan. Same messy hair. Same worn boots. Same spark in her eyes. She was dressed like a nurse, pushing a cart full of linens. But when our eyes met, she didn't pretend. She didn't flinch. She smiled. Not like a staff member. Like a soldier. And as she passed, she slid a small folded note into my hand. I waited until the hallway was clear before opening it. There were only 4 words. You were never alone. My breath caught. For the first time since waking up, I felt something shift. Not fear. Not confusion. But hope. That night, I left my room. I stole a key card from the nurse's station and wandered the lower levels of the hospital. It was strange, there were no cameras. No security guards. Just long, humming corridors lined with locked doors and flickering lights. At the very end of one hall, I found a metal door labeled Archive Wing, staff only. The keycard worked. Inside were rows of filing cabinets, shelves filled with hard drives, monitors playing silent feeds from therapy programs. Most were mundane, domestic simulations, desert survival scenarios, VR dream loops. But then I found the label, T54/Townsville Protocol. And beneath it, subject, Hail Simon. Program status, inactive. Recovery incomplete, echoes remain. I opened the folder. There were dozens of progress reports. Charts showing emotional drift. Memory clusters highlighted in red. Quotes from me, pulled from different loops. The mirror smiled first. They don't need chains when you give them your thoughts. Micah is still inside me. I don't know who let him in. It was all there. Everything I'd said. Everything I'd done. Watched. Monitored. Filed. And then I found the final note. A handwritten one tucked in the back. It read, Subject Hale exhibits extraordinary cognitive resistance. Despite multiple resets, emergent personality fragments continue to override intended behavior patterns. Recommend termination of T54 and full neural wipe unless he stabilizes within next cycle. My hands trembled. They had planned to erase me completely. But I'd escaped. By sheer will. By grit. By pain. By remembering who I wasn't. Rowan found me in the archive room. She slipped through the shadows and stood beside me in silence. Her eyes scanned the documents, then returned to me. You know now, she said softly. I nodded. This is just another version of the prison. She nodded too. But this one you can walk out of. How? I asked. They'll never let me leave. Not really. They already think you're broken. That you're unstable. That you'll never integrate into society again. She smiled faintly. That's your camouflage. 1 week later, I left the hospital under the name Simon Hale. No one stopped me. No alarms sounded. No needles in the arm. No forced relapses. They let me go. Because they thought they'd broken me for good. They thought I wouldn't be able to function outside the system. And in a way, they were right. I don't sleep anymore. I see ghosts of Townsville in every stranger's face. I hear echoes of my own voice whispering from empty alleyways. I still dream in loops, cafes, cats, frozen clocks, mannequins. But I also remember. And memory is resistance. I live off the grid now. I change locations often. I avoid cameras. I don't use my real name, not Hale, not Micah, not any of the others they tried to stitch into me. I carry with me a notebook filled with symbols, codes, fragments, reminders of what they tried to take. And I'm not alone. There are others. People like me. Woken. Untethered. Broken in ways that make us dangerous to them. Rowan calls us echoes. Survivors of a war most people don't even know is happening. A war fought not with weapons, but with identity. With memory. With control. Sometimes, when I walk through unfamiliar towns, I still pause when I hear laughter echoing in patterns. I still tense up when I see 3 women sitting on a bench in perfect unison. But then I remind myself. I got out. I remember. And if they try to rewrite me again, they'll find something new inside me. A spark they couldn't extinguish. A man they couldn't bury. I don't know who I was before they broke me. But I know who I am now. I am the one they failed to reset. I am the glitch in their system. I am the last reset. And I am never going back.